All right, what began as a chilly rainstorm on January 26, 1978, quickly, with little advance warning, became the worst winter storm in Ohio history.
Yes, and then before dawn on January 26, rain started turning into snow, with air temperatures plunging more than 30 degrees. So you got the heavy snow which fell combined with extreme winds, and it continued for hours.
And when it was time for our late newscast on WTOL, at 11 o'clock that night, we were only just beginning to understand the full effects this storm had on our area. Here's my old friend, Jeff Heitz.
WTOL TV, Toledo. Straight from the newsroom, this is Toledo 11 News.
Good evening. President Carter has declared that an emergency exists in Ohio because of the blizzard conditions. The declaration makes federal equipment available to the state to help in recovery operations. Governor Rhodes had wanted a disaster declared, but the emergency is one step short of that. In the Toledo area, some 10 inches of snow has fallen, and there's a chance for 2 more inches by morning. The snow has been driven along by high winds, creating at times a dense white fog and piling up huge drifts in some areas. Power is out in many areas, with repair crews having trouble reaching the equipment down. Roads are hazardous, and even big interstate highways have been closed most of the day. Another Toledo-based Ohio National Guard outfit has been called into duty. The 612th Engineering Battalion has joined the 323rd Military Police Company. Toledo Fire Division crews were answering their calls, but oftentimes had to double back in an attempt to find passable streets. In Michigan, Governor Milliken has declared a state of emergency there because of the blizzard. Many schools, agencies, and businesses will be closed tomorrow. We'll have those for you later in the broadcast. Despite the hardships suffered by many Toledoans, conditions in areas outside of Toledo often were even worse. Mel Martin has the latest for us. Mel?
Jeff, statewide, 175,000 homes are without electricity tonight. About 30 to 50,000 homes in northwest Ohio are out. Outages being reported in Bowling Green, which has also had a water problem. Power problems in rural Erie County, in Tiffin, in Fremont, in Fostoria, in parts of the city of Sandusky. And the picture is not bright for service restoration until sometime tomorrow. Crews are being hampered by drifts, and they are tiring after a rather long day without accomplishing very much. The roads, as you know by now, are a disaster. At least 1,000 stranded in cars in this area, but those estimates may be low because communications are very, very bad. And in Findlay, where Interstate 75, north and south of the city, is impassable, all traffic is stopped, help can't reach motorists, and a private contractor in Hancock County is going to try to open US 224 West to get some of the people on I-75. In Michigan, as Jeff said, there is a state of emergency declared. In Lenawee and Monroe County, they have declared a red alert. That means no driving other than emergency driving. In Bryan, Ohio, the mayor there has ordered no driving except until Saturday noon at the earliest, unless you are an emergency vehicle. Finally, every snowdrift has a silver lining. A beauty salon operator in Cleveland says that 5 hardy customers didn't let the 70-mile-an-hour winds and bitter cold keep them from their appointments. An employee of the salon said they'll do anything to get their hair done, and she went on to say you should have seen them when they got here. After a walk back home in those winds, they probably look pretty lousy too. Jeff, that's it.
Thank you, Mel.
Oh, I love that. And then I actually love how WTOL has always had a Jeff and a Mel. Like, it doesn't matter the decade, they've got one.
1978, it was Toledo 11 anchor Jeff Heitz and our reporter Mel Martin reporting from the newsroom at our station's old location. That was a 604 Jackson, which is where the government center building is now located. It's been there for many, many years, and we've been in this building now since 1981.
Huh. And then once the blizzard started to move out, everyone actually realized just how terrible the storm had been in our area. Snow drifts 15 to 20 feet. Paralyzed nearly the entire state of Ohio and sections of Michigan. Tens of thousands lost electricity, as I heard before, and some had no running water. I-75 was closed for 3 days. Portions of I-475 were closed for almost a week. It was the first time in history the entire length of the Ohio Turnpike shut down. Unfortunately, though, 51 people across the state died, making this the deadliest storm to ever occur in our state.
All right, Tatiana, the folks working at WTOL all those years ago worked really hard to keep our transmitting facility on the air and to continue broadcasting our news. As the electric power was slowly restored around the area to homes, we knew that people would be tuning in for our latest reports.
So exactly 1 week after the blizzard started on February 2nd, WTOL's Mel Martin, as we mentioned before, filed this report attempting to describe what happened in our area over the previous 7 days.
Think back. Did you talk about anything else for the last week? Probably not. We all had snow stories. The woman who lost her car in a drift, the man who slept in his car to avoid walking in drifts, the Buffalo, New York jokes, the sale of sun lamps, snow shovels, and snow blowers, the non-sales of milk and bread. But there were advantages to the storm, only faintly glimpsed through reduced visibilities and the icy fingers of the cold wind. Drivers saw more of Toledo. It was hard not to when you were skidding sideways. In a good skid, you could get a panoramic view. The storm brought us together. The pundits say human stress always does. Even cars came together, locking fenders with fenders, buildings with fenders, even pedestrians with fenders. And our perspective changed. Someone once called this area's appearance a pool table with soybeans. Now it looked like oatmeal with lumps. The lumps were houses, cars, factories, and a truck or two, or three, or four. Then there were rumors. Rumors that the snow had stopped. The snow was starting. 49 inches were coming in the next hour. The National Guard was here. The National Guard wasn't coming. The Guard was late, or early, or took one look at it all and said, let's get out of here. During last year's blizzard, a friend of mine who'd lived in Toledo all his life said, well, this was a once-in-a-lifetime blizzard. Then we had the blizzard of 1978. I think next January I'll plan to be out of town. I'm Mel Martin, Toledo 11 News, with the minicam.
Chris, the first question I want to ask you is how did it all begin? Because the numbers for the snowfall, not that bad. It was the wind that made this an enormous blizzard?
Clearly, it was the wind that really amounted this to what we call a benchmark storm that we still remember now decades later. Just great to look back at those memories, Dan.
Yeah.
Many people really don't appreciate what an incredible snowstorm this was back then, and the video really still chilling to this day and how this one unfolded. And many people will vividly remember this till their final days. It is something that was that incredible. So 46 years ago, that's when it began. Dan, you had a great question. How did this begin? It was actually one of those storm tracks that had a bombshell type of track. It developed down into the deep south, so it tapped into some of that Gulf of Mexico moisture that initially brought it up in the form of rain. And again, on the night of the 25th, many people thought a storm was coming, never knew it was of this magnitude, and this storm rapidly intensified as it went up north of Ohio, north of Cleveland, and whipped blizzard conditions into the entire state. And on the afternoon and evening of the 26th, we were paralyzed across the entire area.
There was really no warning about it as far as the media was concerned. It was unexpected. With today's technology, everything's changed in meteorology. Would this have been a little easier to analyze?
We definitely would have had, a bigger beat on this one, higher confidence of what to expect, because the impacts ultimately for this one was just so significant. Here's some of the numbers, because a lot of people have been wondering, how much snow did we actually see? Officially about 13 inches of snow, but it was very difficult to measure. Temperatures plunged 30 degrees in just about 2 hours. Wind chills with the old formula were in excess of 60 below zero. And as far as the wind gusts out toward Cleveland, 82 miles per hour, but this really stands out a couple things. There was a 111 mile per hour wind gust on an ore carrier just off of Lake Erie, and the lowest barometric pressure ever reported in Toledo at 964 millibars.
That is incredible. My goodness, can't even find the right words. The question is, can it happen again, Chris? Tell me.
So technically, to kind of tie those two questions together, a storm like this could happen again, but we would be far more prepared for it. We would have advanced warning, better forms of communication, and really the restrictions came when people were cut off from different communities, couldn't travel, they couldn't communicate. So if it happened again, we would have better means to communicate. But this is really what ended up happening. We had 15-foot snow drifts, and it was declared an Ohio federal disaster, and for the first time in history, the Ohio Turnpike was closed. I-75, I-475 both closed for days, and it was one of Ohio's worst storms in history, where we had 51 fatalities associated with the blizzard itself. And I think the pictures still to this day stand the test of time.
Chris, thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Up next.